Okay, so welcome to the next video in our tile construction series. And we're going to be moving on creating our secondary, kind of an edge tile. Um, Now this is all, it's a lot of work to start with, but this is all going to make things much easier later on once you get to some of the other parts of your game. So let's create a little bit of an edge tile that we can use for whether it's water or something else. We can kind of create it as we need it. But for now, we're going to take our overhead grass tile we created in our last video, and we're going to hit clone. And it's going to take a moment for things to work here, but once we've hit clone, and it loads here, got really bad internet for some reason. I'm just gonna... There we go. Overhead grass tile. We're going to go edit. And we're going to save it. So we're going to say overhead grass tile. And we're going to say edge. And description will be center. So center edge. Okay, so we've got the same basic repeating pattern. We actually want to keep that, because that was the repeating pattern that we're going to be using to blend this into everything else. But what we're going to do is we're going to add just a nice little sort of dirt cliff edge to it. So we're going to go here. Let's bring it down into the reddy oranges, and we're going to just try and find something that feels right. I kind of like this one. Looks pretty solid to me. And let's just start drawing. So really, this is often just about kind of blocking it in. And then we'll kind of refine this. The best way to think about any sort of creation of tile sets or pixel art in general is that you're actually wanting to just kind of act more like a sculptor than you would when you're normally drawing. You kind of block things in and you refine the shapes because you have that option. Now I've got about 4 pixels, and I actually want this to be a little bit higher of an edge. So I'm going to go with kind of around 6. Because that gives me a little bit of room to work with when I'm, maybe even, should I go 8? No, we don't want it to go half. We want 6 is kind of close to about a third of the way, just a little bit more, because that would be it would be 18 if it was a third. But I've created a little bit of a boundary here. Now we've got to start adding a little bit more detail. So we've blocked in the brown. Now let's go to our low light color here, and let's go down to 1 pixel, and let's just kind of add a little bit more of an edge to this, just kind of almost creating some shading, and then also kind of like a highlight edge here, right? It'll just make it seem a little bit more like something's kind of coming down. I don't necessarily want all the way, but we've got a little bit of like sort of grass hanging over the edge there, and maybe maybe a little bit here too. Yeah, kind of like that. That'll be a nice sort of pattern. And let's also add... now, we can do this a couple of different ways. But if this is going to be having sort of a grass edge also along the bottom, like if this is just like sort of a little cliff on, just for instance, a large field or an area like that, what you probably want to do is also add just a little bit of a layer here at the bottom of grass coming up, right? And especially if it's a highlighter too. And then there we go. So, but it won't be always. Just dirt down for a few here. But now we've got kind of a nice little sort of dirt layer. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go to my dirt. We're just going to add a little bit more texture and a little bit more sort of shadow. So we're going to go here. Let's drop this down. Let's also, yeah, go like that, and just like that. You'll notice that I don't fill in the corner ones. I'm just going straight down. I'm not filling in around. I'm always just, it's good with especially very simple pixel art like this, to just drop straight down when you're doing these kind of things. Like that. Okay. And I'm also going to add just a little bit, now going up, a lighter tone. So let's actually select my number 2 here, take it and move it up just a tad. And I'm going to just create a little bit of a pattern kind of moving across it. Okay, let's maybe that. Okay, that just adds a little bit of like sort of texture to the tile, and just gives it a little bit more of that depth. Okay, so we now have a center tile, and it's all good to go. But we're going to have to now really think about how do we blend this in a number of different ways. So let's take a look. But first, save it. Always save it in Piskel. It doesn't have that sort of normal autosave function that so many programs do. So always make sure that you don't need to say copied from the original there. Always save to your gallery. Okay, and now we're going to start on our next tile.